And actually, I think just from here on out, I'm not even
Yeah.
going to, dance around this. This is a spoiler-filled review. I want to, I don't care. And also, guys, just to tell you, don't see this film. There you go. That's all I can say. That's all I can say.
Damn.
Right? It's not.
You've respected the spoiler review for such bad
Oh.
films. Honestly, this
Mhm.
is kind of like
No, I don't
this
care
no,
anymore.
the,
lets
no,
me
Cal.
know
the,
how little
the thing
you
is
care
with this
about
film,
this.
good pal,
Oh.
is that you
Yeah.
really need to
Mhm.
explain everything so you can understand
Yeah.
why it's
I will
bad.
say this to anyone who's I
'Cause
guess it's remotely interested in
Yeah.
seeing this. What is being advertised to you is not the film. Michael Myers is in this film for a very
Less than
small
10
portion.
minutes?
Probably about that. He is not in this film. Don't believe the trailers. Don't see the film. Simple as. Anyway, so the film opens this whole sequence in 2019 where this boy Corey is babysitting, and then a tragic event happens, and then it's this whole kind of suspenseful thing, and it's like the kid is sort of playing pranks on Corey, and then eventually things get out of hand, and something tragic happens. It was kind of a suspenseful sequence, but then ends on quite a bizarre note, wouldn't you
Oh.
say, Kyle?
It was so funny. It's like I can't lie. So the idea is Corey is with the kid, and
Yep.
Yeah.
like so the mum warns. So obviously the idea of this takes in 2019. I think it takes place a few days after the Halloween Kills.
Yes, a year
Okay.
later.
Was it a year later? Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
it's a year
Halloween
later.
Kills 2018. Yeah.
Yep.
So the mum, it's Halloween 2019, and the mum's like, yeah, the boy's been a bit scared from Michael Myers and everything.
Mm.
And then the kid basically starts, well, kind of playing with the babysitter, like turning off lights or hiding, and like the knife's gone, and you're all like, oh, what's happening? And then Corey goes up the stairs. It's like a kind of spiral,
Yeah.
like
It's,
yeah.
I was like, oh, this is actually quite cool. The way they're sort of like the way it's shot, and you're looking high up into
Yeah.
the spiral staircase. So that looked quite cool.
And then the kid, the babysitter Corey goes into this dark kind of closeted loft room, and then
And I
the
think
kid,
why this sequence is actually quite decent is because it's sort of making you think Michael Myers is going to show up.
oh, you're convinced Michael's
You're convinced
actually
Michael
here.
Myers is going to show up here in the first few
No,
minutes,
yeah.
but then it
And
plays
then the
with
last
you.
second, it's the kid locks him in, and the guy Corey's actually terrified because I think Corey's like convinced Michael actually might be in the room with him, right? So Corey's trying to bust the door open, and this kid's like laughing, holding him back, and just at the point, the mother and father arrive back from the party, and then Corey just like kicks the door in, and it sends the kid flying over the banister down like
Wait,
4
what?
floors and just smacks on the ground.
I mean, they could have made him trip into a knife or something.
No,
right?
it's
No,
like-
but it's
and
like
then it
he
just-
You
goes.
have
The
to
kid goes
fly out.
flying over
What?
over this banister.
No, you're.
It happened so suddenly. It was so fucking.
It's like, why
funny.
did they have to
Oh my
end it on that
God.
ridiculous? Anyway, from there
And that's
on,
the
That's
intro.
hilarious.
That's the
the
intro.
I kind of want to. I kind of want
That's-
to watch. That.
I'm sure you can find that on YouTube already. I mean, the thing's
Oh,
streamed on
God.
Peacock simultaneously in cinemas. So anyway,
Oh, God.
from there on, the whole film is basically Gonzalo. This is a thesis, a quote unquote thesis heavy film, where the whole
Yeah.
thing is trying to question what is evil. Is evil something that is just born within us, or is it something society and it's that something society
Yeah,
creates
the
and can actually
nature versus
yes,
nurture.
exactly, and something that morphs that can morph into us, right? And actually,
Yes. What does
We'll
it
go-
do with that?
we'll go into this, right? The whole problem here is that the film's thesis is already broken when it starts to get into it, right? Because there's this whole montage where Jamie Lee Curtis is writing out her memoirs, basically. Laurie Strode's writing her memoirs. And it goes to this whole montage where it's like, oh, the evil of Michael Myers is still like felt, it still spreads every year. And I remember, do you remember this, Kyle? It's doing this montage where it's like, oh, bad stuff is happening every Halloween because the spirit of evil
Oh,
is,
yeah,
you know,
because
carrying
it's
on
like,
through Hanfield.
yeah.
And then it just shows like a woman has like committed suicide. And I was like, okay, committing suicide's not an evil thing. It's a very odd thing that they quoted over that. Regardless, that's one of a billion nitpicks in this thing. It's like, but then
I mean, yeah,
when
the
this
idea
whole
of calling suicide evil is kind of.
but it's like, but also that it's like
Yeah.
you do realize someone committing suicide is not indicative of Michael Myers' evil. Like, that's just life. You know, the world is bigger than Haddonfield. You can move, and evil will exist in other places. It was just such a weird thing. I'm like, what is this?
They could have had like someone committing
right?
murder, right?
But then from there, the film then decides to follow Corey. The film is about Corey. This is what I'm saying. The whole film is focusing on him as it goes through basically an even more of a rudimentary Joker film than Joker was, as it's basically about this guy who is like, you know, and like I said, the thesis is already broken, right? Because this film it's like this. Oh, was Corey always evil, or is society, you know, pushing him down and making him evil? It's the latter, because the guy wasn't evil, he was a stand-up citizen, and then gets bullied by the same teenagers over and over again, even though Corey's like a 24-year-old guy at this point, gets bullied by some high schoolers, and then because his life's all run down, he decides to go and turn evil. And then it has this whole thing, well, actually, he meets Michael Myers in the sewers. Does Michael Myers try and, you know, spread the evil into him? And I'm like, what? No!
Well, there's one scene where Corey first meet Michael in his wee Teenage Mutant Turtle lair in the sewers. And Michael drags him down, because the idea is that there's a hobo living outside the sewers that kind of gives you the hint that Michael's just been killing people and pulling them into the sewers occasionally. And I'm like, is he a cannibal? Is that how he's living? I was just like, okay, never mind. And Corey gets pulled in, and he kind of gets confronted by Michael for the first time. What happens is there's a wee little shot of Michael staring deeply into Corey's eyes, then deciding to let Corey go. And that's meant to give you, does Michael see himself in Corey? Does he see that evil? And you're like, he's just been bullied the fuck off a bridge. He was actually thrown off a bridge.
Yeah, he was thrown off a bridge.
Yeah, he was thrown off a bridge. And you're kind of like, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw anger in Corey's eyes. He's just been thrown off a fucking bridge. And there's many scenes where, so Corey kind of ignites a little relationship with Laurie's granddaughter.
Yes.
And it's the weirdest thing ever. Alison, that's her name.
Yes, Alison. It's this whole relationship, which dialogue-wise, terrible. I'll just add that in. But it's also, the film is not only trying to be this whole tragic story with Corey, which is like, you know, Joker / falling down / taxi driver whole thing anyway. But then it also tries to be Bonnie and Clyde / natural born killers, where it's like, we're going to burn everything down. And it's trying to be like this angsty teen film. And I'm like, what? You're sitting there. I was sitting there, jaw on floor, being like, I can't believe this is the decisions they've decided to go in for this end of a trilogy, end of Michael Myers' story, where Michael Myers isn't even here. We're just following this crappy love story with someone who's like mentally unwell. And it's just
basically they had no idea what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah, and then Corey basically continues and starts doing a bit more killings. He kills like old cult friend of Allison's, and then an old man.
No, there's this. Kyle, do you remember this bit?
Call me crazy, but like, if you want to like end this trilogy with like a feeling of dread, like that, like Michael Myers might be gone, but like someone like him will always appear, kind of thing. Wouldn't you build a side character to have that negative arc?
I was thinking
while
this, right?
The main characters
if this
are
was
fighting
really,
Michael
if this
Myers,
really
right?
was their idea, this whole trilogy is building to like the sort of continuation of evil, and evil will always rise from something or whatever. You should have let Michael Myers stay dead in that Halloween 2018 film.
Yeah,
and then carry on that idea into Halloween Kills and in this film.
That would have made
Michael Myers reborn into someone else, right? If that's really what you were striving for, but you clearly weren't. You're clearly out of ideas.
How interesting would it? Because you told you talked about like that scene at the beginning and how tense it felt. The idea that like Michael Myers might be there. What if you had like a bunch of scenes like that, and then those people end up dead, but we don't know who killed them. We assume it's Michael Myers, but it turns out there's a new killer that isn't Michael Myers.
Yeah,
you know?
It's also a good way to sort of. It would also actually be a good way if you ever wanted to carry on Halloween and sequels or reboots in the future. You sort of have that room to breathe now, where it's like you've expanded the lore into having something a bit more spiritual, because they already make, you know, Michael Myers indestructible in Halloween Kills anyway, where everyone shoots and stabs him and beats the shit out of him, and he just gets up and kills everyone anyway. So you might as well go on this whole sort of spiritual, soul transcending thing, and you could have had an interesting kills in Halloween Ends. Regardless, that wasn't clearly your plan.
You could have no, obviously, because you could have also like had two very different endings. You could decide, hey, let's make a like hopeless ending, where it's basically like no matter how much we manage to fight these Michael Myers like people, there's always a new one coming out because evil just persists. Or you could have an ending where like one of them is redeemed by the end, either by like killing himself or like doing something like that, where like he saves someone in the last second or something, and a glimmer of hope that could, you know, maybe there's some good in people and blah blah blah. Like you could have done this and you could have made it work, but they apparently didn't. By what you guys say.
So with the Corey thing is that from here on, what happens is he is then inspired and wants to be the next Michael Myers. And there's this really dumb scene where he brings in a body. He brings in this guy who's basically been following him, and like they had like a bit of beef at this diner. Anyway, he brings him into the sewers. The police officer. So he brings him into the sewer, and he goes to Michael Myers. Show me how to do it. Show me how to do it. And at that point, I was like, mate, you've already killed 2 people at this point. Like, you don't really need to be shown. You already killed well, to be fair, accidentally. You fly kicked a kid across a goddamn banister, and then you stabbed a homeless man earlier on. So I'm like, you don't actually need to be shown. So that whole thing was a bit weird. And then from there, it's basically a buddy film between Michael Myers and Corey as they like occasionally go out together and kill people.
Can we talk about that scene?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a scene where Michael and Corey, buddy do a wee killing scene on some doctor and some nurse, okay?
Yep.
And then the single greatest shot in cinema is taken away from us because it immediately cuts to Corey on his motorbike.
Yeah.
And sadly, it's Alison in the back seat. But I swear to God,
it was a terrible edit.
Everybody in that cinema must have assumed Michael was on the back of that bike.
Honestly, if they decided to take the direction of a buddy comedy film with Michael Myers and Corey, I would have loved it.
I was so like, wait a minute, is this Michael like hugging Corey in the back of a bike going down?
But that
and
even
then
leads to
Alison.
That even leads to like some really like see the film. It technically isn't very, especially in the editing front, because even that is a laughable edit. I don't know why they thought that would fly. There's also a scene in a diner between Corey and Allison, which the conversation looks like it's chopped together from different. Takes. Very weirdly done. And there's also another editing scene where Michael Myers, the whole final fight with Laurie and Michael at the end of the film, which is like stitched on for the last 15 minutes, is really badly put together. I thought as a final
really
action
really
sequence.
rushed
I guess.
this movie.
No, really, because but like you can feel like the creative exhaustion coming from this film. No, see when you get to the last 15 minutes, you're like, right. So what was the point of the last hour and a half? Like. None of it matters really, because it's literally the whole thing is somehow a weird excuse to get Michael into Laurie's house for them to have a bit of a scrap and then Laurie to win.
It's so funny because you're right because obviously the first film puts it out that Michael doesn't actually care about Laurie.
Yes,
and that he's gone their way. And it's like this film's almost annoyed about that fact because it then was like, right, Laurie's let Michael go. She's not going to go after him. We kind of need her to fight Michael, but we did say Michael doesn't care about Laurie, and they're like, fuck, how do we do this? So then the end of it is when Corey decides to go and kill Laurie because she doesn't want Allison to run away with him into the night or something. I can't remember. And he's wearing the he's taking Michael's mask because there's an incredible fight scene where Corey goes down to fight Michael Myers, which takes about 20 seconds because it literally looks like a teenager bullying a pensioner.
Yeah.
Like, that is what this
see
fight
how,
looks like.
I said with Halloween Kills, how they basically made Michael Myers not scary because everyone in the film was not scared of him. In this film, they somehow managed to double down on that and make him even less scary by having a guy like a foot and a half smaller than him wrestle with him, trip him up, take his mask, and then basically piss on him and just like fuck off. Like
he might have done that.
He might have done it. Like it's so. I'm like, so Michael Myers is nothing then. Like this whole film, the whole way it's marketed, the whole trilogy is like Michael Myers, this great big horror icon. He should be feared and all that stuff, and it's like a legend of horror, and like it's going to be this big epic conclusion. I was like, no, you've made him look like dirt. You've made him look like, and I'm not one of these. I'm not even a big Halloween fan. I'm not even a big, I don't really get into like, oh, how dare they do this to this character in like a franchise, or how dare they? Like, I usually don't care, but. It's a fucking horror film. It's a horror film, and your main villain is nothing. He's not scary, so therefore the whole film falls apart. Both Michaels aren't scary. Oh,
it was weird because the final fight where Michael goes to, well, I say spoiler, all review. That he kills. Corey dies. Yeah. Well, no, sorry.
Oh no.
Corey ends up actually.
Laurie
stabs himself.
Corey, Laurie, or Maury? Which one dies?
Corey, the Michael 2.0.
Oh my
stabs
god!
himself
I actually forgot about this for a second.
Because he was like, "Oh, if I can't have Allison, nobody can." So he stabs himself to make it look like Laurie killed Corey, so Allison would be annoyed. It's a lot of family drama. Okay.
Walks in, sees.
I have a question. Which one's Corey? Which one's Laurie? And which one's Maury?
Who's Maury?
I'm getting confused.
Laurie's the final girl. Laurie's the main girl. Laurie's the main girl from the original. Corey is the new boy who kicked a kid
Michael
down
Myers
the stairs.
Jr.
Cobra Kai'd him off the stairs.
Corey's the Street Fighter guy.
Yes.
Yeah, and he kills himself because he's like, oh, if I can't have Allison, nobody can. And he kills himself, so it makes it look like Laurie killed her. Allison walks in, something happens, then Michael shows up because Michael actually wants to kill Corey because he's kind of like, I was having fun with the buddy cop thing which I always find weird because he's like we had fun when we killed those people, but you stole my mask and that really hurt me. So Michael fully kills Corey, and then the greatest single fight in the history of man. I'm pretty sure even The Rock would dispute that he has not done anything like this. Laurie and Michael fight. And what it can be described as the single worst fight scene I've ever seen, ever. Not even in a horror film, just ever. It really is. Like, the directors were thinking, how can we get two pensioners fighting looking cool? And then somebody went, I don't think we can. So you have this little tuffle around the kitchen where Laurie starts to basically impale Michael to the cabinets, where he's just lying down.
To basically and the best way ever is like, how do we defeat Michael Myers? And he's it's like an almost 50-year saga at this point. How are they going to kill him in this one? Put a fridge on top of him, right? Pin him down.
A fridge falls on them. She then slits his throat. Which doesn't kill him because he then starts to grab her neck and starts choking him. And for a minute, I'm like, oh, they're gonna die together. No, Allison jumps. Allison jumps in, does something. Michael gets pinned down again. Both his hands are stabbed into the kitchen island, with a fridge on top of him. They then proceed to cut his wrists. To make sure they're completely bled out. The cops arrive and go, right, whew, that was a bit of a session. Should we just do it? And then Gunfallow. The second most ridiculous thing in this film, apart from that pension fight, was no. We need to make sure everybody knows. So they take Michael's dead body, tie it to the top of the car, like a deer, drive through the town.
Everyone's watching like, oh, he's finally dead.
Everybody is following. They go to the.
It's like a procession. It
is a procession. And then they go to the junkyard where Corey worked. To the idea that they're going to put Michael in this industrial shredder, and then what happens is, like in Spider-Man 2, as Lewis pointed out, the entire city, and I didn't notice this until I found it on Twitter. Apparently, people were like going, "Oh, it was so cool! They brought back like some people who survived Halloween Kills." I'm like, I couldn't have told you that. And then
Who cares?
they were like, apparently there was one shot. It looked at like this small young boy in the crowd,
yeah.
and it held on this boy for a wee bit too long. And I was like, "Who are you?" Apparently, you're some Halloween Kills, and it was just like they Spider-Man to him into this industrial shredder and then turn it on.
The hell?
And I was like, and then like the whole body was like fully gone. Like it was like you saw it like getting torn up. It was a wee bit
completely
disgusting.
destroyed and crushed and nothing. So
and then
That
it's like
feels like
Halloween's
overkill.
ends.
yeah. Yep.
That feels like overkill.
The Halloween
Like, holy
ends
shit.
pretty much.
I
And then-
feel like that was just the crew of these past 3 movies being like, we're not fucking doing another one.
yeah.
Make sure
that's
he's
why
dead.
it really felt like that, and which was
Yeah.
funny because like I was saying to Lewis when
Mm-hmm.
when we went to see Knives Out. Actually, we were talking about Halloween ends because we couldn't get it off our minds.
No, it's a
Um,
baffling film.
It's for a baffling film, and I said to him, if they stuck with the Corey becoming the new Michael, would you have preferred it? And I'm now rethinking my own question because I was kind of like, I would have loved, because what I didn't like, because they teased the idea that Corey wore a really shitty Halloween mask.
Oh, he has his own like when he's
He has
working
this,
with
like,
Michael.
weird
he has his
scarecrow.
own scarecrow mask, and it's honestly hilarious. It's like
It-
too
it-
small
it
for
was
his face.
It was pretty dumb, but I was kind of thinking like, I wondered if I'd have thought it'd been kind of cooler if we kind of got like he went out and got like the like almost classic Michael. You know how Michael's mask is like 40 years old and absolutely torn.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'd have loved it if he'd gone out and got like the really
Like the new one.
like
Yeah,
a brand
yeah.
new one and just wore it
The
against
Captain
Michael.
Kirk just turned inside out.
They just went and got the Captain Kirk one and turned it inside out. Somebody did say, I saw a tweet that made me laugh because once again they teased Michael's face, but they kept true and they never showed it up to the last point.
That's good.
There's a lot of it where
Even though
his
they
head's
showed
in
his
the
face
frame.
they showed his face in the very first Halloween film, so it's
I
not
mean,
really
yeah,
a big
they
thing.
did.
But
Yeah, they did. But somebody said a tweet where I would have loved it if, as a last minute cameo, they took the mask off and it was in fact William Shatner. Like somebody said, I would have forgiven Halloween Ends if they took the mask off and it was just William Shatner.
I mean, that would explain the tone of the films a lot better.
I know, but anyway, that was
is
Halloween Ends.
So Kyle,
Corey,
what, or should I say, Michael Myers Jr. What would you rate this
Honestly-
film then, Kyle?
Yes.
that's a very good question, Lewis. I've been thinking about this a lot, and
Alright.
it's I think it's actually unrateable because
You're not rating this film.
I honestly don't think I can because I'm just thinking about it and I
no.
keep questioning, did I see a film? Like I keep questioning that factor because I just
Oh,
keep
man.
going, how do you make 2018's Halloween and then make Halloween Kills and then you kind of go, right, you can't go any lower than Halloween Kills.
Uh-huh.
And then you produce this
Yeah.
and then you go,
Yeah.
shit, they did go lower than this. I don't know what they're going to
Yes.
do now.
Look, Halloween Kills is a terrible film, and this is a terrible film, but Halloween Kills is much more, it's just so much funnier. Whereas this film is just, every decision
Hard to
they
watch.
make is like, why have they done this? And it's such a confusing film. It's like, why am I watching this whole blend of shit and none of it is scary? It's like, how can you classify this as a horror film when it's probably the least scary film just ever made? There's nothing tense about it. There's even the jump scares. The best they've got in the jump scares is the usual like, they open a door and it's the sound effects are super loud and it's like, that's not how the door would have sounded.
There was
anyway.
it was the kid at the start that made me shit myself the most
Aye.
when he jumped out of a closet.
And I was thinking to myself, I was like, right, because you guys know my least favorite film so far this year has been Uncharted. I've said
Yes.
to myself that like that's just a completely soulless film to me. I keep thinking of that Papa John's fight scene. Just makes me makes me cringe.
I had forgotten all about this film until you mentioned it right now. By the way,
the Papa John's, which just makes you show how corporate this film was, and just like, oh, they didn't actually care anyway. And the only thing I could ever say about the film was, well, at least Tom Holland was trying, and so I gave it a little point for that. But this film, I can at least I can kind of recommend Uncharted to some people. I could be like, oh, Uncharted, I guess, like, even though I see absolutely nothing in it, some people.
If you've never seen the game, if you've never played the games and you want a stupid action comedy,
actually no. I'm not just saying because Halloween Ends is bad that this somehow makes Uncharted good. No, it's a terrible film. Don't watch it either. Right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, regardless, this is Halloween Ends is my first ever unwanted opinion. 1 out of 10. There is absolutely nothing in this film for anyone to remotely enjoy. It's a mess on every level. The ideas are flawed. There is not technically. It's not great. The acting is okay, serviceable. There is just there's not, and it feels on the simple fact that you've labelled this as a horror film, and it doesn't work as a horror film because it's not scary. So it's done. There's no atmosphere. There's nothing.
I'm going to jump in here because I was just thinking when you're like, oh yeah, when you said earlier Halloween Kills was your least favourite film of last year, I was like, David Gordon Green has done something quite incredible here, where he has made 2 films that I remember Lewis was saying in 2021, he was like, nothing's going to be worse than Jungle Book. Nothing can be worse than the Jungle Book.
You mean Lion King?
And then a good thing. No, I mean, when did we see Jungle Book?
What are you talking about Jungle Book for? Jungle Cruise?
No, not Jungle Cruise. Sorry.
Jungle Cruise.
Sorry.
I was going to say Jungle Book was bad, but it was
bad. I was like, Jungle Cruise didn't come out before. Sorry. Jungle Cruise, you were like, that's going to be one of my worst films of all year. And then Halloween Kills came out, and you're like, oops. Uncharted could be the worst film of all year. Halloween Ends come out. I mean, I think Lewis should look at a calendar, and if he sees the word Halloween, he goes, well, I know what's going to be my worst film of the year. Like, it's going to be that.
I also, before we kind of wrap up here, I want to put this out to the world, right? And you can put a bet on with me. There will be another Halloween film.
Oh, there will be.
By the end of the decade.
By the end of this decade. No more than 10 years. Because between the first Halloween film and this Halloween Ends, the maximum time between each film was 9 years. So I'm telling you.
Do you know what I want them to do?
There's going to be one. There's going to be one in 2028 for the 50th anniversary. There's going to be a remake. Again,
this is what they're going to do.
A chance to copyright the word Halloween.
Yeah.
Which is an entire fucking holiday. They're going to take that shit.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to take it.
This is what they're going to do. See you this reboot. Yeah. They're going to go, right, this one is going to be a direct sequel to 2018's Halloween. And it's going to take away Kills and Ends, and we're going to call it Halloween. So the trilogy will be Halloween.
Yeah. No, they're either going to do that, or they're going to simply remake it. Just remake the first one again.
Scratch.
I would love the Halloween trilogy.
I want the Halloween trilogy.
But yeah, I am actually.
Halloween.
I was really thinking, I really thought Halloween Ends would be at least remotely slightly better than Halloween Kills, and I can't believe that David Gordon Green has actually topped himself.
Are you even sure it's going to be the end? Now that's my question.
No, it's not. It's not the end. Of course not. Like I said, there'll be one
of this trilogy. Of this trilogy.
Yes, it is the end. It is the end.
Yeah, because I think the critics have said it by this point.
It's one of these things where it's quite. You get these. You know how I would say, like when Top Gun 2 came out, when you see like. When Everything Everywhere All at Once as well. I think those are 2 films this year where it's like there has been unanimous praise from like critics and audiences, and it's like everyone comes together to enjoy this one film, and it feels good that you're a part of it. And then you get a film like Halloween Ends where everyone is on the other end of the spectrum, like fans and audiences are like, this is bad, and it's like, well, at least everyone agrees, pretty much.
Consensus.
But yes, anyway, that is.
I have one question.
Right, we're not moving on just yet.
Before we move on from
Yes.
this topic, I have one question for both of you. Both of you were really big fans of the original movie.
Mhm.
Both of you really enjoyed the reboot.
Mhm.
I want to ask, if you had control
Oh my god.
of the next two movies,
Yes.
what would you have done with them? Let's start
Yeah.
with Kyle.
I had a whole rant to Lewis. I could actually look through my messages, and I was like, I remember this was after Halloween Kills, and I was saying to
Yes.
him, this is what I would have done. I was like, I made a whole thing, and I can't remember what exactly I said, but I did state that I wouldn't have called Halloween 2018 Halloween, because I hate saying that my two favorite Halloween films are Halloween and Halloween.
Yes, yes.
I would have
Same
probably-
name. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I would. I hate saying, "Oh, my two favorite films are Halloween and Halloween." They're great in the series, but it shows to us. I don't know now if, like, what Lewis said earlier,
Yeah.
where would we have kept Michael dead in the first one in the trilogy, and then we introduce Corey's character, and then you could have had him be like a, almost have his kind of origin in Kills, so to speak. We're not call it that, obviously, because that's still a terrible name no matter what.
It's still terrible.
I think.
And then progress, but
I think even with the idea that we had earlier when we talked about kill him in 2018, then we have like the evil continues, and it's like it's a presence or like a ghost, maybe not a ghost, but like you can have even like transcended the slasher genre by having like a possession film. You could have actually then evolved it from being, because Halloween in itself is a very, very small box. There's only so much you can do, really. It's Michael Myers. He's got some weapons. He's going to kill some people. He's in a small town.
Yeah.
That's really it. There's not, and somehow they made 13 films out of this. But anyway, there is only only so much you can do. So I feel like if you did that and you took this sort of more spiritual or ghostly possession aspect to that, you could have then actually you allowed you some room to breathe and actually transcend it into a different type of horror, but they didn't.
You guys know I haven't watched any films outside the original one, but when you
I
talk
thought you just said you
about
haven't seen any films, and I was like, that's pretty accurate, to be
never
honest.
seen any film ever.
That's fairly accurate from you.
No, but like I hadn't seen the reboot, but the part that you were talking about with the main character and how she's like having to reckon with the fact that she's not the protagonist of this story and all that stuff, and with the idea that this last film is trying to compose of like maybe this evil persists and just is inherited and just comes back over and over in different forms, I would have 100% just gone for like a psychological horror where like you have Jamie Lee Curtis's characters like not being able to accept the fact that Jason is gone. Not Jason. Sorry, fuck me. Michael is gone. I mean, they're pretty much the same person. That Michael is gone and like slowly go dark, through that, and her becoming the new Michael Myers.
Okay.
That's what I would have
pretty
done.
nuts.
That's what I would have done.
There's also, what was the other idea? I mean, I said, let's see if they do another Halloween thing. I'm like, why didn't you just go back to what you kind of, I say in brackets, originally had in mind after Halloween 2, and that was to make it an anthology series where each film, like, because you know how Halloween 3 is completely separate.
Too.
And so it's Halloween.
Tell stories of creepy shit during Halloween.
And Halloween, so like Halloween Season of the Witch, you could have Halloween something else. Just if you really wanted to stretch that IP's name for fucking money, then there's something you could do. You don't have to do Michael Myers again. But
Ooh, you know what I would do? I would give it to a bunch of indie horror directors and just use it as like an overall title, and then just have a bunch of really crazy shit.
Who knows? Maybe that's what they'll do. They'll give Ari Aster and A24 to make the next Halloween film. It's an abstract art house horror where it just gets really nutty. I'd love it. Just anything.
It would be fun, honestly. Yeah. Oh man.
But anyway, it's time to move on.
That's the end of Halloween. Let's not
talk about this Halloween shit ever again. Let's just move on. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe to the Unwanted Opinion YouTube channel? We have new reviews and podcast episodes every single week. So subscribe now and don't miss our unwanted opinions.